aka Canadian Rebel, for those of you that remember. This is our very first episode, and this is all brought to you by the Field 68 Media Network. Those guys are doing great things over there, so make sure that you follow us, you make sure that you subscribe, so we can keep the fun going. Our first guest on the inaugural podcast is from Eden Prairie, Minnesota, the pride of Eden Prairie, Minnesota, second in Crane history with 334 3 points made, trailing Oli Kyle Korver, 1,155 career points in a Blue Jay uniform, NBC All Freshman Team, NBC All Bench Team twice, NBC Six-Man of the Year, honorable mention Big East, Mr. Wragge Bob himself, Ethan Wragge. Welcome to the pod, brother.
Thank you,
Good to
Jahenns.
see you, man. Good to see you. So, we just watched the game, a tough game at Providence. You and I both know Providence is never a tough or an
Yeah.
easy place to play at. We had our own battles up there. So, what was your impression of today's game, just overall?
Overall, it's always tough to get a road win at Providence, especially. I thought the guy shot the ball very well. Obviously, Mitch made some really deep threes. I thought that one before
We're
half was
we're
incredible.
gonna get into it. This is a comparison that I think a lot of people want to hear your opinion about. So no, keep going, keep going.
No, but other than that, a road win's a road win. They close it out. Got a little ugly there down the end. Some missed free throws, but other than that, always good to get a road win.
Yeah, for sure. Especially on a night where, you don't get the usual production from Christian Bishop, from
Mhm.
Denzel Mahoney, but you got Mitch that really stepped up. Marcus Zagorowski is the engine that makes this whole car run. And then one of my favorite guys, he reminds me a lot of myself, but except a lot more skilled, a lot bigger, a lot stronger, a lot faster. Damon Jefferson, just Mr. Hustle doing
Yep.
everything for those guys. So the trio of them, Jefferson, 18 points, Zagorowski, 20 points, Ballack, 14 points, shooting the ball pretty well. This Mitch is the guy that we need to talk about. He had four big ones in the first half, and then to end the first half, he launched one that we used to call Wragge range. I think he might have you on the range part of it. But no, this is a comparison that I see a lot because he stretches the floor out. The gravity that he has opens up stuff for everybody on the team. Marcus has
Mhm.
driving lanes, Damon has driving lanes, Denzel has driving lanes because of how far away teams have to go out and defend Mitch. So that's something that you provided for us during your entire career as a Blue Jay. But every once in a while, you have those games where you feel like you're not getting the touches that you need. How do
Yeah.
you stay engaged? Because you know that teams are going way out. They don't want you to touch the ball. And like sometimes you're not really in a flow. So how did you stay engaged in games like that? Because it happened a lot in your career.
Yeah, and I was actually surprised to see Providence in that zone most of the game, and I thought Mitch and the other guy's eyes would have just kind of widened right away. But Providence did a good job of taking that away. And what I always viewed it as is I kind of viewed it in my head as a passless assist. If they're going to basically deny me out to beyond NBA range, and they're going to be so close that someone else can basically, instead of going through that Mitch to swing the ball, it can go directly through someone else. And you watch when your teammates make a three. Hopefully you feel the same, but it does kind of make them pay the price for overstretching on just one guy when they got four other guys out there that can shoot it.
Yeah, for sure. Obviously, you guys play two different positions. Mitch
Oh
plays
yeah.
a lot more three. Sometimes they put him at the four, but they like to spread the court out when he's playing the four. So those are the two differences that I see in you guys' game. But aside
Mm.
from that, like extreme range, extreme confidence, ultimate neon green light. Given Coach Matt gave it to you, he gave it to Mitch. So it's really nice to see. I guess you were 34, he was 24. Another difference
He
there
dribbles a
too.
little bit more than I like to,
He
so
definitely does. He comes off ball
good
screens.
for him.
He's a lot more of a driver. And
Make it
this is his
difficult
senior
on
year,
yourself.
and I bet this is his senior year.
Yep.
And our senior year, I think he only made two-point field goals. So
Might have
he's
stepped
already
on the
got you
line
beat
on a
there.
couple, so that was maybe my only reason. But Mitch is good at that. He gets his shot off in a lot of creative ways that maybe weren't
Mhm.
standard for me, but he is a lot faster guy guarding him than I used to.
For sure. And for our senior year, we asked you to play 4 or 5. You were a little bit undersized at the 5 spot, but you sacrificed that in order to help our team because we felt that was the best opportunity for us to win. It took a toll on your body as that season went on, obviously. But kind of talk about pretty much playing your four your entire career as a Blue Jay, and then seeing your coach Mac approaching you, telling you, look, this is the transition that we need to make if we really want to be successful.
Yeah, it's it's kind of pretty. straightforward once you look at it. There's a guy named Doug playing the 4 position along with me, and
Mhm.
just with 40 minutes in the game to play, Doug's not going to come out that often. So for us to be effective, I ended up playing that 5 position, put on a little weight, and I thought it did a little good job of, when people knew I was down there alone. I think other people, you and Austin and Avery and Grant, would all kind of react in a way that, oh, we shouldn't just leave them down there alone. And thought we did a good job
Right.
of team defense and not just expecting me to hold my own and block a bunch of shots, which wasn't coming.
The one thing I liked about you playing the 5, though, is one of the most underrated things in basketball, the box out. You really mastered that. And me and Austin, I remember coming through, stealing a whole bunch of your rebounds, but that's because you put your body on the big guy, made sure they didn't get it, and allowed the guards to come down there. So, I mean, kudos to you for, being gritty enough to battle really inside with those guys. So that's awesome. It was an experience to play with you, brother. I miss it. I think about it all the time. I'm like, damn, like those were the boys. Those are really good moments. When I graduated, I always said no regrets, but I guess the only regret I have is that we can't go back in time and have one more run at it.
Yeah, it was good while it happened. I'm sure you've seen playing overseas. It's a little different than playing at Creighton and just with guys that you do a bunch of stuff with. You're always around and played 4 years together. So it was awesome while it lasted. But I like this Creighton team. I like still watching it, staying involved. But from a basketball standpoint, I still think we'd give them a run, Jahenns. I don't know about
Yeah.
what you think.
I like, like in the 2K matchups, you can go back and use a historic team and play against a current team. Like sometimes I wish you could do that too, for sure.
That would be a good one.
Uh, so let's get into your pro career.
Okay.
A lot of people know that you college before this call it quits. I think it was back in 2016, 2017. Am I correct on that?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You first start off, your first gig is in Spain in Bilbao. From going from 5 years, you redshirted sophomore year after your plantar fasciitis, 5 years in Omaha, Nebraska to flying overseas and your first experience being in Bilbao, Spain. Talk to me about like that transition, how it felt to be overseas, to be, away from family and friends and really kind of being alone in a sense for the first time in a long time.
Yeah, it was a really big learning experience, I guess, overall from life to basketball. I ended up getting a pretty big knee surgery in May of 2014 after the season was over. Bilbao reached out to my agent at that time, and I came over in about August, and I didn't play a game till late October, so I missed about our first 3 games. But it was really interesting. Played with a bunch of guys that were older. It was they played in the NBA or played in other high level leagues, and learned a lot from them just about the way you have a role in college, but over there you specifically have a role, and when you're in, you can't kind of pass up shots that maybe you thought would be good shots to get a great shot. It's you're in there to execute at a higher level and just learning from them. And we ended up got fourth in the ACB that year, got into the playoffs, and we had a really good cohesive team. But one of those things, Jens, you've probably seen over there, the expectations in European and top level basketball is there's definitely your Yankees and your Red Sox, and then there's sometimes your lower budget teams that you learn a lot about team basketball when you're playing against a team that probably has some pretty big names on it.
Yeah, for sure. I always find that no matter what country you go to, the first like two, three teams, it's very difficult to get dubs against them. And
Mm-hmm.
then there's a whole group middle of the pack, like from 4 through 9, maybe, that anything is possible.
Yeah,
And the bottom tier, they just can't buy a win. I always find
it's
that to be
crazy.
to be the case. Yeah,
Yeah, there's
for
some.
sure. So you go from Spain.
Yep.
I think you played summer league the following year with the Lakers.
Spain, Germany Summer League.
Uh, right.
That
So I
was
want to talk to you
my.
about Germany. Yeah,
Yeah.
because this is this is one that you and I kind of hold
Yep.
near and dear to our heart. So if you guys don't know, Ethan played for the Gießen 46ers the year before I played for the Gießen
Hmm.
46ers. And the running joke that you and I had between us is that I still owe you 10% of that year's salary because you put in a good word for me. So transitioning from Spain to Germany, what were like the differences between those two European countries, would you say?
Just the countries in general. Germany is very fluent in English versus where I was at in Spain. So just communicating with personnel, coaching, the front office, the fans in Germany was a little bit easier than it was in Spain. Um, but the level of basketball is still very high in Germany. I thought we did a good job of competing as well with the teams that are in that league and the players that are, I think there's 7 or 8 that were over there at my time that are now big contributors in the NBA. So just seeing that level of jump and being able to compete with the team that we had was really fun. And then, talking with that coach at that time about, there's another guy from Creighton, if, what he was like, what he's kind of able to work at, what's his skill set. When they were recruiting Jahenns to come there from, I believe you in your Romania at that time, or
I believe, yeah, it was the year after Cyprus. So
yeah,
Romania first, Cyprus second. Yeah. I'm
yeah,
curious, Ethan, though. So what did you tell the coaches about me?
that he's a great value. I mean, I don't know what the price tag was on you, but he does a little bit of everything,
Uh-huh.
and he's always has a good attitude. He's always been a part of winning teams, and over there's a lot of like looking after your own stats, and that's not really a way that Jahen's played. Is one of the things that
Mhm.
I remember communicating, and then he's a great shooter and he speaks multiple languages. Huge
Nice.
value over there in Europe. So
Yeah.
hopefully it landed, and I know you guys had a really good season that year, so
Yeah,
hopefully
we
it worked
did.
out.
We fell one game short of making the playoffs. I think it was the highest that team had because remember they were coming from the second league
Yeah,
couple of
the
years before you got there.
I was the
And
first
then
year
yeah.
after. I
Oh, were you
was
okay?
Yeah, so we had a couple guys over from that team, but good team overall.
So that actually brings us to our first fan question of the night,
Ooh,
and it comes from one of our former teammates, Benny Lishek, your boy,
okay,
my boy, a former
Benny.
Gießen 46er as well. And his question to you is, Ethan, how much do you miss Gießen at Ulen?
I miss Keeson quite dearly, Benny.
Yeah.
From my neighbors that you guys helped me out with in their communication to going down to whatever that cafe was at the top floor and getting some coffees and whatever that hot wine was you guys made me drink. It was all
And Glühwein,
yeah,
baby, during
Glühwein,
Christmas
all
time. Yeah.
all good stuff. And the team I had with Benny, especially, I don't know if you had all those guys, and it was great because they were part of that team that had won the year before to get moved up and
Mhm.
really kind of welcomed me in as someone who had no business being there with that team, and they embraced me pretty quickly. And I know, if my memory serves me correctly, Benny's a die-hard Giants fan, and I know he's just had a tough
Yeah, yeah,
year.
he is. Yeah.
My condolences out to him, and hopefully he can stick with it for one more year of American football.
I mean, the Giants have a chance to play spoiler tomorrow against the Cowboys. I would hate to see the
Oh,
Cowboys
I
in the
hate to
playoffs.
see
I mean,
Benny happy.
NFC East, anyways, like whatever. That whole division is awful. I guess not being a football player, am I allowed to say that even? But man, I don't want to see any of those teams in the playoffs. That's something that the
Exactly.
NFL needs to figure out, high key. But
Exactly.
no, I agree with you, man. Gießen's an awesome spot. Only 45 minutes away from Frankfurt. If you guys ever have a chance to visit Germany, once this whole crazy pandemic is done, I would highly encourage you to go visit Gießen, a nice little small town where the people are extremely friendly, extremely nice, and they really have your back. It really kind of feels like home when you're over there. All right, Ethan, let's go to the genesis of it all.
Ooh,
You're a high school kid in Eden Prairie, 6'6", 6'7", tall, strong shooter from in the gym range. Basically, as soon as you walk across half court, people have to defend you. We know that you ended up at Crane, but what were some
yep,
of the other schools that you were kind of thinking about going, maybe that you might have visited, and you decided at the end of the day that Crane was the right fit for you?
yeah. At that time, obviously, Creighton being in the Missouri Valley was getting a good handful of looks from those schools as well, Northern Iowa, Drake, and Creighton was kind of in between figuring out if they had scholarships available. If they did not, heard really early on from Coach Mack wasn't interested in a tall white shooter at Iowa State, so that was good to get out of the way. But then actually had a really unique recruiting story in the sense of I went and did one more tournament. We played against DeMarcus Cousins, and he decided to let me shoot a bunch of open threes. And
Mhm.
I came back from there, and Creighton was very interested after that, and got some other Big Ten offers, and ended up going to Creighton just because of my relationship with D-Rock and Coach Altman at the time. They were great, and obviously knowing shooting basketball, I knew I wanted to shoot well in college as I did in high school, and Creighton definitely fit that mold of giving you the chance to shoot open shots.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I know there's also a story out there about you technically not being allowed to shoot threes up until you were in high
That's
school. Am I
true.
correct? That was Mama
It's very
Ronnie
true.
that emphasized that, didn't she?
Yeah, my mom was a good shooter, and I was always decent enough, but not in a. I was always tall enough, not in a hurry to get out that 3-point line, and
Mhm.
but it kind of put that rule in so that you don't compromise form for fifth grade 3-point field goal makes, and tell a lot of kids if they're still interested in making threes to hold off on compromising that distance in your form to make early 3-pointers in your AAU career, I would say.
Right. It's always like it's weird to me when I see some high school highlights and I see guys like pulling up from deep, but literally like they have to twerk their entire body to get it like above the defender and to give it enough arc to even give it a chance. So
Shooting
like
shots. Yeah.
I mean, the fact that Mamaragi had the wherewithal to make sure that you that you took it easy, that you weren't in a hurry to get out there. I mean, the proof is in the pudding. Look at you now, second all time in three-pointers made in Blue Jay history. I mean, that's a dope story to kind of like that comes full circle like that. You know, patience is very key in that kind of
Mm-hmm.
development, and you were one of the great ones, brother. Honestly.
Helps getting some good passes.
Now let's get back to Oh, I mean, yeah, I'm sure in about like at least 30% of your threes, I was on the passing end of it. I'll give Austin maybe 50%. I'll give Gibbs the other 30. He was too busy passing it to Doug anyways.
Yeah. Went to easy assists.
Uh, so you're at Creighton. We had a great level of success. Played a bunch of games, a bunch of good games, a bunch of tough games. Lost our share of games that we thought we should have won, but definitely won more games than we lost. What
Mm-hmm.
was your favorite basketball memory in a Blue Jay uniform? I know I'm putting you on the spot,
Oh
and I know it's a
man.
tough question, but what was your favorite basketball memory, do you think?
It's always it's kind of a question of, you first think individual performance versus team success or team performance. Obviously a lot of people probably associate anything I did in college with our game against Villanova. To come out and make, that number of threes that quickly in a game was obviously individually one of the better performances of my career. But I do always have a soft spot for, we played at San Diego State, I believe in like 2012, and I
Yeah,
made the
sophomore
ugliest
year.
baseline or road runner, if you want to call that a runner.
Guess who passed it to you?
And Jahenns did pass it to me, and that was obviously a fun game because I think cohesively for a team, go on a road, tough environment. I think we were sophomores at the time and trying to figure out if we were legit or, still had some stuff to work on. And that was a big win for us, I thought. But as a team win, I don't think it's close. The 2013 Missouri Valley Conference Championship, where you
Yeah.
actually hit a game-winning layup. So that was a fun game. Just last time Creighton in the MVC playing Wichita State for our second in a row MVC title was a great game to be a part of.
Yeah, and that's it's kind of wild to think about that because like at the time we didn't know it was going to be our
Yep.
last Missouri Valley Conference game. Like we were just going in like we disliked Wichita State. We had just beat them at home a week previously to that on senior night, and we just wanted to win a championship. We wanted to win another
Mm-hmm.
championship. And on a day where Doug kind of starts off slowly, Gregory Echenike didn't really get his feet under him until maybe like the second half. You come in off the bench and you give us a tremendous boost. I think you knocked down like three threes back to back to back, forced Greg Marshall to call a timeout, and we just kind of found ourselves after that. So
That's
uh,
fun.
coming off the bench and being such a big contributor, obviously something that you're used to. I already named your accolades about being all bench, which they needed to change that name. All bench
Sounds
team. I got that my freshman year too. It sounds being an all bench team member, being six man of the year. I think that was the year that you were six man of the year as well. So just talk about kind of like your emotions, kind of seeing the starters struggle. Coach Matt calls your number, you get up, you're about to check into the game. What's going through your mind in a championship situation like that where you're able to give us such a big lift?
It was an interesting game. For some context that maybe be missed or people really had to watch carefully, but I played about a minute the game before. I actually broke my wrist in the Drake game, our first round game. Didn't play in the Indiana State game. Taped up my left wrist pretty tight and thought I could just, didn't have to use it too much if I was just going to shoot or try to figure it out. And it really helped to see that first shot go in. Obviously, in those scenarios, I just, I've always told people that played there, those are tough rooms to shoot in. They're really hard,
Mhm.
and to get that first one
Scottrade,
to go,
yeah,
yeah,
Scottrade. It's like a double rim at the park. Like
yeah,
those
you can tell it's a
really
hockey arena.
Yeah,
And
for sure.
it just helped have that first one go in, and then like that year and the years before and after, once I kind of got one, I thought everyone always did a good job of either drawing up a play or making that extra pass to me to see if I could keep that rhythm kind of going. And once I got that first one going and we kind of got that lift going, I feel like the rest of the game kind of came to us, and we were able to out execute kind of that last 10 minutes of that game. I thought was great by us.
Yeah, for sure. Such a great memory for me as well.
Oh yeah,
Like I said, we didn't know it was going to be the last time playing in the Missouri Valley Conference, but I mean to go out like that, to
good
beat
ending.
our arch rivals too, yeah, it's a pretty good ending. And then that team goes on to go to the Final Four, and we can't make it out of the first weekend. I actually
Uh,
that's the next thing that I kind of wanted to talk about.
yeah.
Going back to this year's team, our teams never made it past the first weekend. That's one of the regrets that I have. I always thought that we had the talent, the cohesiveness, the team to really make it past the first tournament and maybe challenge for like a Sweet 16, Elite Eight type of situation. But it's never been done in Creighton history. Do you believe that this team, this current team that we just saw, that we just watched play tonight against Providence, that they have a shot to making it past the first weekend?
Yeah, you really hope they do. I know last year was just a bad luck of the pandemic for them.
Yeah,
They were had such
that
a
would have been the year. That
yeah,
would have been the year.
had such a good, strong end of the season. Obviously, co-Big East champs, and then just the pandemic shut them down. And I really hope with this year, with everything going on, that they're at least able to play the games, and maintain a high seed. And a lot of it comes down to, I felt like our first 2 years we were playing obviously in North Carolina's backyard. Duke's backyard is pretty much the whole country. So there we were up in Philly, and then even that last year playing Baylor in San Antonio, a little further drive from Omaha for a 3 seed. So hopefully,
Yeah, for sure.
hopefully these guys get a good draw or whatever the NCAA tournament decides. They get some good matchups, and obviously they have the talent and the skill set. They're a deep team, experienced team, which are all good characteristics to make a good run this year.
Mhm. For sure. I agree with you 100%. I think obviously last year's team, no doubt in my mind if the tournament happened that they were going to be able to find a way past
Mhm.
that first weekend for the first time in our history. I'm hoping that this team has similar success as last year's team, if not more. There's a lot of hopes on this team because I mean, talking
Mhm.
to Crane fans, like Crane fans are eager to finally get that off of our record, to say that we were a Sweet 16 team in such and such a year. And that's weird. Like I want to talk to you also about the transition from like playing for the Jays and then now becoming obviously a fan that still watches game, that still interacts with people who still talk Korean basketball. How weird has that been for you to, you go from grinding every day, practicing, going through two-a-days, all that stuff, playing a full season, to your senior year is done, and now you're looking back and you're watching and you're actually cheering on the guys that you had just played with, and
Yeah.
even like further down the line, the next couple of years. How's that experience been for you?
It's pretty great actually. You don't have the stress of 2 days making shots, missing shots, just the pressure of class and the season. I don't miss as much, but being out there on game day, seeing the final product is something that we'll always miss. Feel bad for the guys, just with everything going on this year, not being able to play in front of the crowds in Omaha. It's something you get a limited number of games to, and it's unreplaceable. So just hopefully, it gets past it with everything in the pandemic. But I love it. Sitting from afar, watching them. I know Coach Maxwell runs. I see half the same plays that we ran, and now just different versions of them with the kind of personnel that they have. But having that kind of secondhand knowledge, being familiar with the coaching staff and the experiences, just makes it that much more enjoyable to watch.
Yeah, for sure. Speaking of Coach Mac too, like I always thought his X's and O's, like I don't know if there's three coaches better in the nation at drawing up stuff from either out of bounds plays or like if he sees something on film that he thinks he can exploit to come up with a quick set that will attack. Like I don't know if you guys know Coach Mack loves to script. His first couple of plays, he did it with us, where he knows for the first three plays of the game at least that we're going to get a really good look. Uh, we already talked about your transition from playing the
Mhm.
four to the five. Talk a little bit about like the stuff that you and Coach Mack talked about, how he was going to use you offensively, because again, it was a different situation for us. We're pretty much playing five out. We went from having a traditional low post player with Gregory Echenike, who really demanded the ball, was great at that, We started that year off playing with Will Artino, and then you get kind of implemented into the starting lineup during our West Coast trip when we played against Long Beach State. So
Hmm.
talk to me about like maybe kind of the X's and O's part of it that you and Coach Mac talked about, because I'm always fascinated in thinking, how do coaches like come up with this stuff on the fly? Like that was kind of a big transition for us.
Yeah, Coach Mac's great. Always has been at end out of bounds or side out of bounds plays. Just drawing up some what our strengths are versus what that team's weaknesses could be to expose early on and get the confidence going. But overall, from an X and O standpoint, I was familiar enough with the system coming in from, I guess, my redshirt sophomore year was Coach Mac's first year to my senior year. Familiar enough with the system that I can be replaceable if it was at the 4 or 5 spot, or me and Doug flipping, or me and Doug being on the same side for a post entry pass, to make sure that they had to make a decision if they're going to double or if they're going to let me shoot it. But I thought early on we just did a great job of figuring out that Doug and I could play off each other and play to the strengths and weakness, and I didn't need a shot. Didn't have to shoot the ball necessarily to affect the game in some scenarios if they were going to let Doug score 44 points, which I think is clear evidence of the second time we played Villanova. They
Yeah.
tried to play him one-on-one, and I only shot, I think, 2 shots, and Doug definitely could get his buckets down there. So I would say overall, Jahenns just working through that offense, like, with Doug at the focal point and running back screens and flare screens. And I think it was called South Dakota, where we set a back screen and Doug slips around like
Dakota, yeah, the
we
little
did.
baseline, yeah.
That's a Nick Baugh favorite for everyone.
Hmm.
But other than that, it was just easy enough for us to plug and play different players that had played multiple different spots in his offense. And at the end of the day, just we had to make some shots, keep that pressure on. And I think during our point of our career, he really changed that tempo that this team is really capitalizing on.
Yeah, for sure. Do you find like watching the games now? I mean, I thought that we really flew it up the floor, but I'm looking at these guys now. They're really flying after a make or a miss. They're pushing the ball. They got multiple ball handlers who can set up their offense, and their spacing is so good. Do you find that like watching them, it's kind of like there's no way at this age I could keep up with those guys?
They do look pretty quick getting that ball up the court. At the same time, if they're going to shoot 60% from the free throw line, I tell Coach Mac maybe we might do some early European basketball fouling in that shot clock to kind of eliminate some of that pace and that break they would have. But they do a great job overall of getting that 1-2 dribbles up the court. They have multiple guys that can handle it. One of the things that probably our team didn't have great with me at the center versus what they get with Bishop and some other guys.
Yeah, that vertical threat was not there with you necessarily. Which actually, this is a great segue to our second fan question of the day. Is from Coach Tyler Edwards. I don't know if you remember Coach.
Oh
He used to always
yeah.
bring up his teams, yep, at team camp and stuff like that. So his question is, Ethan Wragge, who's the better dunker? Since we're talking about vertical threats, is it you or his favorite protege, Casey Harriman?
Man, Casey Harriman, that's a good question. Maybe before I hurt my foot and got put on all that weight and with Dan Bailey in the weight room, I could jump a little bit better, but Casey always was a better 1 foot jumper. You have to stat correct me here, Rob Anderson. I don't know who has more Creighton career dunks in their game, me or Casey. So
Do you
Coach
have a dunk?
Edwards, no. So I assuming Casey didn't either.
I I have one if the fans would allow it. It's that little quick little,
Against Marquette.
the hard layup is what I used to call it. But yeah, against Marquette, I thought for sure that people would count that as a dunk. But I'm I want to say I'm surprised that you don't have one, being 6'7" and all. But then again, the way that you played wasn't really conducive to dunks, were they? Was
What
it?
happened early on, freshman or sophomore year, but
Hmm.
no. Hopefully, there's people on here get vouch. I think I did have a couple in high school, so it was
Yeah,
possible one time in my life.
yeah, for sure. I wanted to bring back the comparison between you and Mitch because I
Hmm.
forgot a fan question that I actually wanted to ask like during that little part of the pod. Five-star foul is asking how far do you think you can bury a three right now? Getting out the bed, walking to a gym. What do you think your range is right now, Robbie Bomb?
Man, it's been a couple months since a basketball's been shot, but that's still not an
Really?
excuse. I'd probably say 3 feet past the NBA line from the top of the keys. Still pretty comfortable from a trail position.
Still better than most. I mean, I
Uh,
play pro out here. Not a lot of people can do that.
but
So
it might take a couple warm-up shots. But obviously, I still think that trail 3 for me, I can get the distance pretty easily.
yeah. So I wanted to get into this part.
Hmm.
So we talked about graduating from Korean, playing a little bit overseas, deciding, your body just had gone through enough grind that you didn't want to go through it anymore. You hang up the sneakers. What's life been like for you since basketball's been,
Yep.
something that you called it quits on?
Yep. 20 August, I would say about 2016, I was done. Did summer league with the Lakers and just felt like the body and the knee and the rest of the stuff, it was time to hang it up. And I was working in Chicago for a larger company at the time in the data space. And I actually moved out to Denver now almost 2 years ago in June. So been out here since June of 2018. And I work for a technology startup, our sales team. Been trying to just figure that out, what this real world's like, and staying healthy and body's feeling good now that I don't have to really move laterally as much as let's say I once used to. So yep,
Yeah.
it's good life out here
Uh,
in Denver. I'm gonna go skiing later today. It's a pretty funny
oh,
sight. So
nice.
see
I
if
was
I
gonna
hang it
ask,
up.
how often do you feel like you exercise? How often think you feel like you get a sweat?
Quarantine's been fun. I'm on the team Peloton, so that's about the big sweat I get out. But other than that,
Mhm.
just kind of doing some outdoor stuff, staying kind of somewhat active, I'd say, with the Peloton set. Other than that, not trying to not trying to be the king at exercising over here. Don't want to be hurting the knees any more than I need to.
Well, Ethan, I promise you, the way you shot the ball, if you ever want to get back into it, there's some teams out here that could need your help, brother.
Oh
I could tell
man,
you that firsthand.
I
Is there
know.
is there a part of you that misses, the grind, the getting up, the practicing, the getting along with teammates, the bus rides, the plane rides? Is there a part of you that really misses those times?
Definitely. Just because the way I had to end playing basketball wasn't necessarily on my terms. I,
Hmm.
couldn't go out and say I had accomplished everything I wanted to in the time. But for me, at the end of the day, it was my health, the amount of fun, the amount of work wasn't quite where it was when I was in college or even healthier. And I'm happy with the decision, but at the same time, you do miss, the camaraderie you get with teammates, the amount of just time and effort and work you spend with them is not quite the same as what I would view as the real world. You're not all bought in at all times for a cohesive win and a goal, but at the same time, you can take a lot of what I did in basketball or you've done, Jahenns, and it translates pretty well to this real world. So
Yeah.
I'm sure one day you'll see how your body's feeling or how you're playing if there's going to play basketball forever or you're starting to figure out these
Uh,
other outlets.
For me personally, man, I still feel like pretty good.
Yeah.
We actually just had a game today, not the result that we wanted, but
Uh,
like I said, I enjoy the grind. I enjoy the getting up, practicing, competing against everyone on a daily basis. And then, Ethan, you would know this better than anyone, that feeling on game day when you wake up and like it's time to go, is still a rush for me. So I think I still got a few years left.
good.
Knock on wood, knock on wood that my body decides, that it's okay and that I can still keep moving forward. But no,
Awesome.
for sure. Like I'm always kind of fascinated with guys who are no longer playing, their transition, adjusting to what people call quote unquote real life,
Yeah.
and how they see it and their experience with it.
Yeah, there's no playbook. Tell you that there wasn't a class at Creighton I remember taking, but it's definitely a learning experience. But I can tell you, play it as long as you can because there's a lot of work or a lot of foundational work I noticed with basketball with even the old 9 to 5.
Mhm. For sure. So let's go back to our senior year
Mhm.
one more time. We lose to Baylor
Yep.
in a game that we all felt like we should have won, but for that day, the better team won. So we don't get to make it to the Final Four, but you, Ethan Wragge, personally went to the Final Four. You were invited to the three-point
Yep.
competition that year. Obviously, when you're in that kind of environment, you're around a bunch of great players, a bunch of different personalities and stuff like that. Talk about that experience of like, obviously it wasn't our whole team being there, but still you got to get a little bit of a taste of what a Final Four looked like.
Yeah, it was incredible. I remember we watched Wisconsin, Kentucky, I think, was playing in that Final Four, maybe the championship game at the Cowboy Stadium, and just the sheer size and volume of amount of fans and people there was incredible. And then doing the 3-point contest was obviously a great honor to be selected. I remember I did not shoot it particularly well. No excuse. I did have knee surgery 2 weeks later, so I'm not going to give it off the hook that that's a really strong competition, I think, for me. Just, no dribbling, ball at the rack. I would have liked to done better, but same time, there were some really great shooters there, and a lot of guys that are still playing and have done really well. And I remember even the dunk contest too was incredible. Like, there was a pretty good show put on by the college dunk contest.
Who was it? Who was it that set you guys up as bowling pins after he dunked it? I remember watching it.
Oh man.
I remember watching on TV, and you were like one of the pins, so you did like the whole like wobble, and you were supposed to fall down. And I remember thinking, "Geez, Ethan's not gonna fall down gracefully here," because like I
I don't
knew,
know if I've taken a charge in my career.
right? I knew kind of like the physical toll that the season had taken you. You're out there just to shoot threes and stuff. Now there's guys asking you to be a bowling pin. I know for sure, like the Ethan that I know was like, "Damn it, do I really have to do that?"
I wasn't too thrilled about it, but I think it was a great event. A lot of guys kind of at the end of their seasons or their careers in college, and that's a good event the NCAA does. I'll tell them that.
That's a good clip to find. If you guys are curious about that, just Google or I guess YouTube 2014 NCAA dunk competition, whatever it is, man. I forgot who it was that asked yesterday, but I vividly remember being in Opus looking at the TV and being like, Ethan's not gonna look good here.
Not a graceful
For
fall.
sure. All right, so now looking into the future, we talked about the how good this current team could look. If you were a coach on the sideline and you had some advice to tell the guys who are currently playing, what would it be?
Man, that's a great kind of one ask question. I would say definitely for
you can
these
elaborate
guys,
as much as you want. I'm sure there's different ways to think about this. So.
Yeah, I would just say with these guys being so experienced, so they've kind of been there through this. They've won the league before. I would just say, don't look ahead. You got to take this one game at a time. I felt like during times in our season, we were looking maybe 1 or 2 games ahead, and we let one slip at Providence before, we lost to Villanova. And I remember that year at that time, a 2-loss season doesn't get you the Big East tournament, and you just have to take it one game at a time. Don't be looking to May or March. Don't be looking to, the end of February even. Just kind of enjoy this kind of tough grinding stretch here in the Big East. And I'm sure it'll be March as soon as it can, and just kind of keep getting better, and don't try to play your best basketball here in the beginning of January. Keep building it up.
Yeah, for sure. I agree with you 100%. I literally don't even have anything else to add to that, honestly. No, but I mean, it is kind of human nature. I don't know if you remember, especially when we played in the Valley, like we would always go on like a 3-game losing streak, like mid-February, and we could never figure out why. But conference games are tough. Teams know you, coaches know you, you're well scouted. There's no easy games on the road. So you just kind of go in there and you have to go in there and give it your best effort, play together. And what I love about this year's team, like it's fun watching it without the fans actually for once, because you hear so much communication happening on the court, either from Coach Mack on the sideline to the players, or just the players, communicating actions and sets while they're on the floor. So I would say that would equate to like a lot of or great leadership, I should say, starting from the top with Marcus Zagorowski, to have the experience of Mitch Ballack and Damian Jefferson, all those guys who have been through some battles, in order to lead the younger guys who come in off the bench and really set the tone from tip off. So, yeah, no, I agree with what you said wholeheartedly, brother. Listen, Ethan, that just about sums it up for us. Dude, I miss you, bro. Talking about all this stuff, like I'm hyped right now. Like I feel like I could play 40 minutes with a Blue Jays jersey on right now. But yeah, it's so nice to see you. Obviously, you're a fan favorite. You've been a fan favorite for a really long time. The originator of the Deep Three, the originator of Wragge bombs. I mean, is there anything else that you want to say to Blue Jay Nation before you sign off?
No, this is great, Jahenns. I know this is first time on the podcast. I appreciate you having me on, and appreciate everyone else taking some time to hear what me and Jens maybe got to reminisce or talk about. And, I would just say best of luck to this team and keep going forward. I know a lot of Jays fans out there will be watching, and fingers crossed that this is the year we get over that hump in the tournament.
Yeah, for sure. All right, E, take
Awesome.
care of yourself. Take it easy.
Yep.
Stay safe out there. Happy New Year's. Forgot to say that to
Yeah.
you and
Love
your
that joke.
family. You know how much I love the Wragge family. You guys have a special place in my heart for sure.
Definitely.
This has been episode 1 of the Welcome to the J podcast hosted by me, Jahenns Manigat. Our first guest was Wragge Bomb, Ethan Wragge himself. This was hosted by the Field of 68 Media Network. Thank you guys for joining us, and we'll see you soon. Go Jays.